Hi guys, it's Calvin with Utah Worm Company. Today I want to show you how we set up our worm bins. We've been able to sell quite a few worms on our website, and we've had some of our customers ask how to set up their worm bin. And so we're going to show you what works for us. We are successful with composting in these bins, and we've also been successful at breeding worms in these bins. And so today I'm going to show you how we set that up. Those of you that have purchased wormlets on our website and would like to know how to set those up, this is exactly how you'll set those up. So as far as a bin goes, you can use just about any bin. These I purchased at Lowe's. They're a little over $8, and so they're pretty economical, and I know exactly how many worms that I need to put in there when I'm breeding. When it comes to composting, I have bins like this, and I put a couple thousand worms in there, and they just pulverize the bedding and the food that I give them every other day. And so this is how we set that up. So I first have a bucket of shredded cardboard, and I've let this cardboard soak for about a day. If you go any longer than that, it starts to stink. I don't think it does anything too bad, but it's really not necessary. I've noticed that if I let it set for 12 hours or 24 hours, it really doesn't make a difference. And so I've had this soaking. And generally, you would never want to have a lot of water in your bin, but I'm going to show you why I don't really squeeze the water out when I put it in there, because I'm going to add some dry organic material to the bedding, and it needs to be sopped up with that water. And so we kind of have a system down. If you're afraid that you're going to put too much water and you want to be intentional about how much water you want to put into it, then you can wring this out like this and then just put it in the bin. And so I'll have my cameraman come over here and we'll show you how we do this. So we're going to add that in. See, there's quite a bit of water, and we're just going to try to take as much of this cardboard out of here as we can. And I'm not going to let it be totally soaking wet, but I definitely want some water in there to absorb the soil that I'm going to add to the cardboard. So we'll just continue to take this out. And this just gives them a good bedding. Worms love cardboard. It don't matter if they're my red wigglers. It don't matter if they're my composting mix. It doesn't matter if they're my European night crawlers. My Euros really love cardboard. I'll put fresh produce on top and pulverized produce, and they'll eat the cardboard before they eat that produce. So it's kind of interesting that way. One thing with cardboard, though, is you have to remember that the worms have gizzards. And they have to have grit in order to break down their food. So if you're using cardboard, you want to make sure you're adding some type of grit, whether it's oyster shell, whether it's eggshell, whether it's playground sand. And today I'm going to actually add playground sand. I don't necessarily need to add the playground sand because I'm going to be adding soil to this, and that soil is going to have the grit that it needs to in here. But it doesn't hurt to add it. And I always add sand anytime I make a bin. Whenever I sift my bins and add new bedding, I always add the sand. And so I'm going to do that right now. Those of you that have the wormlet, it's going to come in a package along with the agricultural lime that we'll talk about. And so all you do is just sprinkle that sand on the cardboard. There's no magical amount that you put on. It isn't going to hurt them if you put too much on. And so I just kind of lightly cover the top like that. And then I'll just kind of mix this in, and you'll be able to feel it's gritty when you're done. And so one other thing that the worms need to have, just to protect them from, keep the balance for acidity inside the bedding, is agricultural lime. And you can get that at any agricultural store. Tractor Supply, Intermountain Farmers, any of those stores will have agricultural lime. And it is the same way. About a tablespoon I put in here. Roughly. I know it can be frustrating because it looks like we're putting just a random amount on here, and that's really what we're doing. But it's not going to hurt your worms. And I'll mix that in with the cardboard so that we have the lime in there with it. So those two important parts are now in the bin. So with that, now I'm going to add some organic material just to give it a little bit of a variety. And our worms just seem to do well with this mixture. And this is just organic potting soil. I use organic because I know there's not been any fertilizers or anything, chemical fertilizers added to it. I also look on there and make sure, for me, I make sure there's no earthworm castings that are in it. it would be a great thing to inoculate the bin and to introduce microbes to it. The problem with that is it could introduce cocoons that I don't want in my bins. I have bins that are purebred red wigglers, and I separate my red wigglers with everything that I do. So if I add this potting soil and it's got earthworm castings in it, you run the chance of having cocoons in there that are not the species that you're raising. And so just a little tidbit to be mindful of there. So once you add that organic material, you'll put it in here, and the water from the cardboard, that is going to wet your bin and the soil that you put in here. And I just sit and mix it around like this. When you're finished, you do not want any standing water in your bin. It can create your bin to go anaerobic, and that can be harmful and fatal for your worms. It's nothing to be stressed out about. Worms love water. My worms congregate where it's the wettest, but I just don't want to have that standing water in the bottom of it. So as you'll look here in this bin, if you'll look close, have you show, when we're done, it can be wet on the bottom like that, but there is no standing water or puddles of water. And so this is about perfect. And that cardboard's going to continue to absorb the water that's inside there. And that is the bin in its completion. So we have our cardboard, we have soil, we have agricultural lime, and we have playground sand. You mix that together, and then you'll add your worms. And so when you add your worms, you'll want to just place the worms on top and let them go down into the bedding naturally. Now, a couple of our customers have called, and their worms have tried to escape because they put a lid on this and kept it in the dark. The worms are going to have to get used to their new bedding. And no matter how great that bedding is, it's going to be new to the worms because you don't know where those worms came from, what kind of bedding they were in. So it's obviously going to be a little bit new to them. And so you'll place those on the top. And the most important thing you can do is you get a light, and right here is an LED light. You can buy these cheap. This is a big one because we place it above in our garage here and on our rack systems so that there's plenty of LED light to keep the worms in their bins. But once you've placed the worms on top, add light and force those worms to go down into the bedding by themselves. You don't want to put the worms in there and then go like this, because if there is something wrong with your bedding and you've done something wrong, they're going to let you know. And you don't want to, you want to make sure that they're comfortable going down in the bedding and you're not trying to force them in, because if they don't like it, you're going to see them trying to come up over the sides. You're going to see them try to escape at all costs. And, but the light is going to, they don't like light. And I actually think it hurts them a little bit. But you put the light on them, that'll push them down into the bedding, and leave that light on them for at least 24 hours. And then I cover them. And so once they've stayed in there and everything's good, I will cover the bin. And for those of you that buy the wormlet, you'll receive this worm blanket. And what I do with that is I will moisten that up. A couple purposes this serves is it will help retain moisture. I will wet this, put it on the top. It'll keep the worms dark underneath. It'll help retain the moisture in the bin, but they will also come up and eat this. They love this material. And so eventually you'll have to replace this if they come up and start eating the worm blanket. So with the water from my cardboard, oops, I'm just going to dunk this in there like so, get it wet, and then I'm going to wring it out like a sponge. And then I'm going to place that on the top. So to place that on the top there, that's going to keep it cool. If it's in the middle of the summer, this acts as kind of like a swamp cooler per se. It'll keep the bin cool, but it'll also keep the moisture in there and also keep it dark for them. So it's kind of a perfect little blanket for your worm bin. And that is all you do. And so you'll just want to check this and make sure that the bin looks healthy. And then you just start to feed. Lift that over and then start placing your food. If you have fruit that you're putting in here, if you're grinding up your food like I do in one of my videos, you just put it in the middle here. and they will come up and eat, and they will start producing castings as they eat the cardboard and the produce. But it's very simple, and it's not anything to be nervous about, to be stressed about. Don't let that be what holds you back from becoming a worm person. You can experiment. Once you get your bin, you can experiment with all kinds of things. The worms are going to tell you whether your bin is healthy or not, and you'll also be able to tell by the smell. If it smells good and you don't have a strong scent and it smells earthy and like castings, you'll know you're doing well. If it starts to have a real strong stench, you probably got too much water in there, so you'll need to add something to absorb that water. But your worms are going to love the moisture, and so keep them wet, keep them fed. It'll create a ton of castings for you, and they will reproduce in this setting. So I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. My phone number is 435-650-3308. I'll be happy to walk through setting up your bin. Whether you buy your worms from me or not, if you need help setting up your bin, I would be happy to help you with the things that we've been successful with. So if you haven't done so, you can like and subscribe our YouTube page. When I produce new videos, it'll let you know that there's a new video out there. And our goal is just to educate people on worms and to inspire people to see the power of them. If you need some worms, if you'd like a worm kit, we have the Wormlet on our website. We have worms on our website, and you can find that at www.utahworms.com. But I appreciate you following and watching this video. Thanks for watching.